Welcome back to another edition of studentrentertips.com. In this edition, we're going to talk about move-in tips and some of the things that you can do to maximize your ability to get your security deposit back at the end of your tenancy and to make things run as smoothly as possible throughout your tenancy. One of the first things that we think is very important for students to do is to take photographs when they initially move in. Not only will photographs give you a physical and an important representation of what your apartment looked like when you first moved in, but they assist you in the process of dealing with your landlord throughout your tenancy. If it's possible, make sure that you have photographs that can be date stamped and time stamped on them so that if you ever have to provide them to a court or to your landlord to show what the condition of the apartment was, it'll be clear when those photos took place. Now, one of the most important things about photographs is that they can really detail what happens through the apartment when you're disputing your landlord over wear and tear issues at the end. Because a lot of times there will be wear and tear, and it's important for you to document that even if you were in an apartment for a year, sometimes things get worse that were already bad. So it's important for you to be able to show that your landlord, hey, I didn't do this. This is kind of the condition that it was when I first moved in. The other issue that photographs can help with are habitability issues. And if something happens throughout the course of your tenancy where it becomes uninhabitable, it's important to show the progression of how the apartment looked over time. Habitability will be talked about in another lecture, so I'm going to leave that to that subsection. The second issue that I want to talk about is it's important to do a walkthrough with your landlord. On the website, we have an inventory checklist. Now, your landlord may provide something like an inventory checklist in your lease, and that's okay to use as well. But what's most important is that you go through your apartment with your landlord and check off any deficiencies that you find in your lease, and you make sure that the landlord is aware of those things as well. Now, walking through the apartment with your landlord is really important because you can gauge his or her reaction to different problems that you perceive in the unit. Because if the landlord is very difficult or they seem to be dismissing a lot of things, you might be a little bit inclined to think about another place to live if the landlord's really not going to be someone who's going to be attentive to the needs that you may have throughout your tenancy, especially when it comes to things about habitability. The last part about walkthroughs is that it's important that you do this before you sign the actual lease. It would not be a good idea if you signed the lease and then did a walkthrough with the landlord because you've already signed a legal document. Now, it may not be that big of a deal, but if it does come up and you want to get out of the lease, it's a lot easier to do that before you sign the lease. The third part that I want to talk about are additional responsibilities. There are sometimes things that are not incorporated into the lease, sometimes like yard work, or maybe the way that you need to maintain the granite countertops. So for your own important, for dealing with the upkeep of the unit, it's important to know how and what your responsibilities are. Is there a mower on the premises that you're supposed to use for mowing the lawn? Or is there a special solution that your landlord says that you should use for the granite countertops to keep them from getting harmed? That can save you a lot of money on your security deposit in the long run. Thanks for listening, and we hope that you'll continue on with the rest of the lectures.